So we really do get this question a lot. And one of the biggest groups that we get it from is our new practitioners. And the question really is it possible to change a relationship instantly? Because they hear these stories from us all the time. And the next question is how? But the question of possibility, we come up against again and again and again because it kind of seems like magic. How are we changing the dynamics between two people, or what seems like, their life, like their timeline, so dramatically in one short session? Well, it's easy and it's hard to answer at the same time. And the truth is that with Cognomovement, we really are talking about the ability to shift time space reality, at least as it speaks to your perspective and your perception. So let me say that again. I have it written down here so I could say it exactly the way I want to. We're talking about the ability to shift time space reality, at least from our unique perspective and perception. We're talking about changing the way your nervous system interacts with the world around you. And when we change that, the nervous system, and the way it interacts with the world around you, then instantly the world looks like a very, very different place. So, what am I really talking about? I'm talking about people being in a session, and so often it's about husbands and wives and spouses, but not always. Sometimes it's about work, a person at work that they're fighting with. Sometimes it's about very dear and best friends, siblings, many times about parents and children. They come and do a session and they're just so upset about how the situation is going. And of course, it's always the other person doing something that's upsetting us or our client. And then they walk out of that session, and either during the session or immediately after the session, the person in question, the person they're having the problem with, will have called or text with some apology or some complete about face in their opinion. And to the person that it happens to, it very much feels like magic, or we like to say a timeline shift, plot twist, right? But what is it really, and why is it so repeatable? I mean, these results are very, very repeatable, and there's a really good reason for why. Now, it may sound a little esoteric when you hear it on the surface, but the truth is, it's really about our own electromagnetic frequencies. Now, everything is electric, it's power. Our heart beats, it creates this electric magnetic field that allows all of our cells to function and go. When that stops, our power cord is pulled and we cease to exist here. So we have to think about things in terms of electricity and our horsepower and our plug-in. So everything that we think and feel is a part of that electromagnetic field and begins to create a field of its own. Not in any kind of a woo-woo way, but really in an electromagnetic way. Has its own signature. Thoughts travel along our nervous system to our body to make our hands move, make our eyes move, right? Make our mouth move. But they also travel along those lines to create feelings. And those feelings in our body also send signals back to the brain to tell the brain how to feel about this. Our feelings dictate what we think. And as we all know, stay with me here, what we think we call our beliefs. But what we think really aren't our beliefs. What we think is just a result of how we feel physically in our body. And our bodies learn. It learns from our environment and it learns from our experience, and then creates a feeling. and then sends a signal to the brain, which the brain decides to interpret that feeling into now a belief. Is that belief true or not true, real or not real? There isn't any way to tell because it's from your unique perspective. The hormones and chemicals and electricity that went into creating that feeling in your body and then went into creating the belief are wholly unique to you and your body. And there's not another person on the planet who holds that particular belief, feeling, and thought about a subject. Well, what in the heck does that have to do with our relationships? As it turns out, everything. So now that thought, feeling about a subject, and it could be about a person, it could be about a belief that we hold that we want someone else to hold, or that we know is in direct opposition to our belief, and that's what causes the clash. So our nervous system is essentially clashing with theirs, with their very unique thought, feeling, perspective, electromagnetic, hormonal, chemical. So now you've got these two very unique things that are maybe true, maybe not true. Probably pieces of both are true or not. Maybe both are not true. And we're interacting with each other based on things that we really in our hearts believe are accurate from both sides. It's both perspectives. So who's wrong? Well, each are going to point the finger because from our perspective, we know for sure that that thing is wrong. Except for that we really don't. Because what we're really reacting to is something that happened to us from our past. It's called our subconscious. But our subconscious is really just built up of automated thought, feelings, patterns. And those sometimes come from before we're born. Sometimes in the womb. A big noise will happen and the body makes up what to believe about that noise. Maybe it's fear. You know, maybe you're a person who saw a spider on a TV once and it caused a pattern in your body that made you have arachnophobia. Where another person maybe saw a cartoon about a spider and their nervous system made up a story about loving spiders. Who's right? Neither. It's just a perspective of the nervous system. So cognomovement, this funny little ball that you see behind me, and the system that surrounds it, speaks to those nervous system patterns and changes them, deletes them. And once those nervous system patterns are changed, now the world looks like a brand new place. Now this nervous system is no longer interacting in a negative way with that nervous system. There's not a clash because now there's an ability to see more like 360 degrees of a situation. So let me share a story that might help this become more clear in terms of how do things change instantly? How does our perspective change instantly? So I was out in the woods. My husband and I like to go exploring in our woods. There's lots and lots and lots of mountains and trees around here, and we'll find these unique little streams that are so beautiful and their little ecosystems are gorgeous. So we were out last weekend, and in the stream there were these plants, a flower with a stalk, the base about the size of a quarter, a very hairy stalk, all the way up, probably 3 feet tall. And at the top of it were these little flowers, tiny, tiny little pink flowers, absolutely beautiful. But they appeared to come right out of the rocks in the stream. Well, I love flowers and know a lot about them, and I'm looking and thinking, well, I've never seen that before. And how is that stalk coming right out of a rock in the middle of the stream? So I thought, well, it must be a bulb of some kind. And then I looked again and thought, well, that would have to be a very large bulb. And how is it in the rock? So I'm looking, thinking I know what I know about bulbs. Well, then I think, oh, well, maybe it's a tuber. more of a rhizome, sort of a different shaped kind of a bulb. And I thought, okay, well, that makes sense. So my eyes shifted perspective just a little, and what I saw was a rhizome under, about this long. Okay. But still, that didn't make much sense. I thought, well, maybe the roots go down in the rocks. And then all of a sudden, my vision shifted one more time to see what had been there all along, and I couldn't know it, couldn't see it because I had never seen it before. I didn't know something like this could exist. Well, it turns out it's a series of what looks like ropes about this thick around, a system, a whole huge system. Fascinating, super interesting, that was covering the rocks. It wasn't in the rock at all. It was on the rock, and this system, I guess you could call it roots, but I really don't know, was actually covering the rock and looked like the rock. Well, then I looked one more time, and I could see that the system actually went under the stream and up to the next rock and up to the next rock. And it was a system that was covering this whole stream. What was true about what I saw? Was it true that the flower came right up out of the rock when I first saw it? Well, kind of. That's what it looked like to me. That was all I knew. Oh, sorry, guys. I've got a dog barking in the background. So what was true is that there was this massive system, but it was a system that I had no way of knowing existed and couldn't actually visually see it until my perspective shifted again and again. And that is what we're talking about with relationships, that the relationship shifts instantly when the perspective shifts. Now let's talk about it on a little bit of a bigger scale and something that may sound a little metaphysical, but the truth is it's very physical. Well, let me back up just a little bit. Imagine a tug of rope. When you're pulling back and forth like this, what happens when one side lets go? The other side sort of collapses. That's what happens energetically, and I mean horsepower, electromagnetically, when one of these patterns lets go. Our body stops generating that pattern that's been in such conflict with the other person in our life, instantly stops generating it. Now, no matter where we are in the world, the other person actually feels the release of that energy that has been bumping up against theirs again and again and again. Even in our sleep, when we have somebody that we're in a war with, they feel it. And maybe that war is subtle. Maybe it's about vaccines. Maybe it's about COVID. Maybe it's about how we were raised and how our mother treated us. Or maybe it's about, our religion. But the people that are so close to us, they constantly feel us and we constantly feel them. When somebody's thinking about you, you pick up the phone and call them. They say, I was just thinking about you. It's just these electromagnetic fields that our bodies generate. Now let's go back to what I said in the beginning. Those thought feeling patterns are not real or not real. They're just something that our body decided how to feel and sent the signal to the brain. And then the brain makes it bigger and the body makes it bigger and the brain makes it bigger. So round and round it goes, eventually creating a stronger and stronger field that when it bumps up against someone else, they feel it as well. Now they have the same field going on in their body, only it's completely different and from a completely different perspective. When we are able to, through the Cognomovement system, let that go, and it's not logical. It is not logical. You walk in and you feel one way and you leave and you think, how did I ever feel that way? Your body just doesn't feel that way anymore. And because it doesn't, the thought's gone. Now what becomes available is everything else. Just like my flower story. It's actually there all along. The people that you love but you're fighting with, They really are these amazing people that they always were. And now all of a sudden you can see it for what it really is. That's the most interesting part. So I had this amazing conversation with one of our great practitioners, Marina, yesterday. And we were talking about just this. When you're able to let go of one of these patterns that has had such a hold on your belief system for so long, all of a sudden your consciousness raises, your awareness is more because you can see more of what the world really is. You aren't biased by that thought feeling pattern any longer. And it raises your consciousness to a point where you get to neutrality. You're neutral on the subject. Okay, that's what you believe. All right, that's fine. No problems. There's no resistance, right? That's neutrality. But then you jump up into almost a form of compassion where you can really, really see what it is that has created that person and created their unique perspective. Remember I said we're changing time-space reality based on your very unique perspective? Well, free of those old patterns and those things that were restricting you and keeping you in place, you now can see what it is that has formulated that person's unique perspective and belief. You now understand that their nervous system was creating a defense mechanism for themselves. Each of our bodies protects our body. That's the way we're built. Our body's only job is to keep us alive. So it protects us against things that hurt us, that hurt our feelings, that bump up against belief systems that we hold so dear, which again are just a thought feeling pattern. And so once you're free and you can see that person for what they are, your love and your respect and your kindness and your true compassion soars. And there's nothing that they can do but feel that. There is no resistance. And now they're free to actually walk back into your field in a new perspective as well. So that's how. That's the how. Essentially, you walk out with a different body. You walk out with a different energetic field. You walk out with a different perspective. And now everyone around you interacts with you in a different way. So it really feels like they're different. They changed. But they didn't. You did. And what you can see of them is different. What you can see is that whole incredible root system under the water that makes that gorgeous, unique flower possible. And that changes everything. That is the function of what creates what very much looks like and is a time-space reality shift. Because your life actually functions very, very differently. One of our most famous stories, and I think it's in the book, Suffering is Optional, on our website, is of a woman who was at a training whose son was living at home, a failure to launch situation. He was a mess. She was after him about his room all the time, not working. And she was very, very stressed out. So she was actually at a training, a seminar. And at lunchtime, during the seminar, she'd been working on him, on this relationship with him. How the heck to get him to do what she felt she wanted him to do. And at lunch, she gets a call. Mom, I just want you to know that when you get home, things are going to look like a mess, but I don't want you to be upset. I want you to know that what I'm doing is I'm actually cleaning out my room. I know you've wanted me to do that for a while, but it's going to look messy when you get here, but I want you to know I'm working on this. I'm doing this. She was so shocked she could not believe how it was possible that that shift had taken place from the morning to the afternoon. What changed? The only thing that changed was that feeling, thought, electromagnetic hormonal pattern in her body. And when it was gone, when it was released, he was free to do what he probably always wanted to do all along, but was coming up against such conflict against her energetic field. We do this all the time and we don't know it because we're not taught it. We're taught that when we believe something, it's real. Not that, oh, well, actually, our belief stems from a feeling in the body that stems from something we experienced in our past, maybe something we experienced as a 4-year-old child with no understanding about how that thing works. And then that feeling sends a signal to the brain, and the brain interprets it as good, bad, or ugly, and then sends a signal back down to the body. So if each of us would start to consider our held beliefs, our dearest held beliefs, our thoughts about others, as nothing more than a pattern that may be useful, resourceful, or not, if we challenge each and every one of them and get clear, meaning we're making the nervous system really, in a way, answer for that feeling. We work through the feeling, not the logical mind, just that feeling in the body. And we change that electromagnetic signal. Now, for each of us, in every relationship that we have, that time-space reality can be changed. So if you're not one of our practitioners listening to this explanation, if you haven't been in Cognomovement before, I'm Liz Larson with the Cognomovement Systems. I'm the co-creator, co-developer of Cognomovement, along with Bill McKenna, who is the founder of Cognomovement. And we have classes that are about relationship, where what we do is we just go right in and we get really honest about how we feel. Now, this is the interesting thing. Many times, many modalities, many, therapy and all of that wants us to change how we feel. They want us to let it go. Cognomovement's not different than that, but what we're asking you to do is really feel it. Tell the truth. Get in there. If you hate your husband, say what an SOB he is, right? If you hate your kids in the moment, say what little jerks they are. Feel it. If you hate the way you were raised by your mother, you feel that hatred. So we're asking the body and the person to be really honest about how they actually feel, because that's the way in to getting the body to release that feeling. It's about the feeling. So if you're a person who really thinks, first of all, they're ready to be honest with themselves, you don't have to tell anybody anything, but with yourself, and really feel what you do feel and believe what you do believe about that thing, and focus on it while we do this funny little system, you can have that shift as well. You can have that time-space reality seeming shift in your relationships. It's possible only every time. So you would only want to do this if you're actually really ready to experience something different in your work relationships, at home, with your kids, with your workmates, with your friends. It's possible in any relationship. You can do it with your own body. You can do it with your animals. Because remember, all of it exists within your electromagnetic patterns within your body. So if you'd like to know more about this, please visit cognomovement.com. If you are one of our fabulous practitioners, let's open up the conversation a little more about this. The more that you understand about how this is actually happening, the easier it's going to be for you to relate to clients in session. Again, I'm Liz Larson, and this is all about how can a funny little ball change your relationships fundamentally and really at a cellular level. All right, guys, reach out. Let me know what you have to say about this topic, questions and comments, here on Facebook at cognomovement.com, or founder of Cognomovement page, or just info@cognomovement.com. We'll talk to you guys very soon. Bye-bye.